Superman's powers have seen dramatic transformations over the decades, each shift redefining his role as Earth's greatest hero. In this video, we'll dive into how his abilities evolved, from the modest capabilities of a humble protector to the near-godlike powers of an unstoppable icon. You've probably heard the argument before, or maybe you've made it yourself. Superman is just too powerful. But the truth is, Superman's strength has varied wildly over time, with highs and lows that might surprise you. Let's unpack the fascinating details. We'll begin with his unexpected secret origins in the early 1930s. Believe it or not, the very first iteration of Superman, introduced in 1933, wasn't a hero at all. He was a villain. During the Great Depression, aspiring creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two high school friends struggling to sell their stories, decided to self-publish their ideas in a fanzine titled Science Fiction: The Advance Guard of Future Civilization. In the third issue, they debuted a story called Reign of the Superman, a clear nod to Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch. This tale followed Professor Smalley, a mad scientist who plucks an unfortunate man named Bill Dunn from a breadline, tempting him with the promise of a meal and fresh clothes. Smalley's concoction grants Dunn telepathic powers, but the newfound abilities quickly corrupt him, leading him down a path of murder, theft, and a bid to dominate the world. But Smalley, true to his mad scientist nature, had no intention of letting Dunn keep his newfound powers. He planned to kill him and claim them for himself. Unfortunately for Smalley, the plan backfires spectacularly when Dunn turns the tables and kills him instead. The catch? The potion's effects were temporary. Stripped of his powers, Dunn found himself right back where he started, in the breadline. After several failed attempts to bring their creation to life, Siegel and Shuster finally introduced a radically reimagined Superman in Action Comics issue 1. This marks the start of the Golden Age, spanning from 1938 to the early 1950s. In his groundbreaking 1938 debut, Superman could lift a car, leap 1/8 of a mile, outrun an express train, and deflect bullets with ease, though not yet fully invulnerable. As the Golden Age unfolded, Superman's abilities grew exponentially, turning him into a much more formidable figure. The Fleischer cartoons of the early 1940s introduced audiences to a Superman who could fly, setting the stage for other powers like super hearing, X-ray vision, telescopic vision, and even greater physical strength. By the end of the Golden Age, Superman had heat vision, could survive atomic explosions, and had achieved faster-than-light flight. Now, let's shift to the Silver Age, which stretched from the mid-1950s to 1970. Superman's powers continued to expand during this period, and so did his universe, with the addition of beloved characters like Supergirl and his loyal super pet, Krypto. Throughout this period, many stories delved into Superman's Kryptonian heritage, thanks in part to his ability to fly fast enough to travel through time, introducing elements like bottled cities and intriguing new villains. However, these tales often revealed a creative struggle, as writers found it increasingly difficult to create challenges worthy of the Man of Steel. Inevitably, the storytelling veered into the bizarre. Superman began to manifest outlandish powers, such as superventriloquism, superweaving, and the ability to shoot miniature versions of himself from his hands, which often appeared for just a single issue. Additionally, various colors of kryptonite brought about strange transformations, including turning Superman into an ant-like creature, or even an exaggeratedly effeminate version of himself. Now we transition into the Bronze Age, spanning from 1970 to 1985. This era marked a shift in focus, with greater emphasis on Superman's characterization. While the Golden Age presented him as a champion of social justice during the Depression and a wartime hero, and the Silver Age cast him as a cosmic adventurer, the Bronze Age gave us a more introspective Superman. Although his powers remained near godlike, his intellectual depth took center stage. Superman became an explorer, philosopher, and scientist, sometimes even adopting a pacifist outlook. Under the skilled writing of Elliot Maggin, Superman often questioned whether his presence hindered humanity's progress. Meanwhile, the Christopher Reeve films further expanded his powers with unusual abilities like wall-repairing vision, super cellophane shields, and the infamous memory-erasing kiss. Next, we step into the Dark or Iron Age, covering the period from 1986 to the early 1990s. This era began with a major event called Crisis on Infinite Earths, which effectively rebooted the DC universe. During this period, Superman's abilities were scaled back to his core powers: flight, super speed, immense strength, X-ray vision, super hearing, and heat vision. His intellect was downgraded to that of an average human, and while his strength remained immense, it was no longer infinite. In fact, he faced his ultimate test when a monstrous, Hulk-like villain named Doomsday killed him. But don't worry, he came back with a mullet. John Byrne also introduced a fresh concept. Superman's powers were explained as the result of a personal force field surrounding his body, which conveniently clarified why his costume was almost never damaged. Next, we enter the Modern Age, spanning the mid-1990s to 2011. Superman experienced frequent power losses during this era, and on one occasion, his abilities returned in an unexpected and controversial form. If you've ever seen images of an electric blue Superman, rest assured they're real, though widely regarded as a misstep. In this phase, Superman transformed into a being of pure energy. His powers became poorly defined during this period, but fortunately, by the decade's end, he reverted to his classic abilities. As the years went on, Superman gradually regained his super intelligence and even developed the ability to see across various light spectrums. Now we move on to the New 52 Rebirth, covering the period from 2011 to today. In 2011, the DC Universe underwent another significant overhaul following the Flashpoint event. This rebooted Superman as a younger, more impulsive hero at the start of his journey, wielding a Golden Age-inspired power set while fighting for social justice in Metropolis. Over the course of 18 issues, he gradually developed iconic abilities like flight, super intelligence, and some of the less outlandish powers from the Silver Age. The only truly new ability introduced was the Super Flare, a devastating blast of concentrated heat vision that temporarily drained him of all his powers for a few days after use. Eventually, this version of Superman met his end, succumbing to a mix of kryptonite poisoning and other factors, and was replaced by his modern-age counterpart. Now let's highlight a few abilities you might not know about. Did you know Superman can absorb energy? His solar receptors allow him to absorb various types of energy in specific situations. For instance, he's absorbed cosmic energy from Starman and even tapped into the immense power of the totality. Superman is also capable of creating massive sonic booms with a simple clap of his hands, loud enough to be heard across entire states. He possesses molecular acceleration, enabling him to vibrate his molecular structure to produce extraordinary effects. By vibrating at incredibly high speeds, he can access the space between spaces, an imperceptible vibrational frequency that allows him and General Zod to have private conversations away from prying eyes. At an atomic level, Superman can vibrate his molecules at just the right frequency, granting him the ability to phase through solid objects like walls without causing any damage. Did you know Superman's superhuman immune system makes him immune to toxins and diseases? Additionally, he has remarkable resistance to energy-based attacks. He's endured incredible amounts of electricity, withstanding 300,000 volts and even 10 gigawatts on separate occasions without harm. After exposure to the energy of a white sun, Superman gained the ability to traverse interstellar distances instantly by creating rifts in space-time. This ability even allowed him to return to Lex Luthor after being teleported away, simply by tearing through space itself. Finally, when supercharged by Genesis, a radioactive mineral formed from the crystallized blood of an old god, Superman can amplify his bioelectric aura to generate a massive energy construct of himself, embodying his immense power.